Natalie, 35, sits at her desk in a glass-walled office, 42nd floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, the city's skyline stretching out like a glittering promise. She's a forensic accountant, a title that sounds dry to most, but to her, it feels like a superpower, a sharp mind trained to sniff out lies buried in numbers. Her colleagues at Harrow and Associates, a prestigious firm, call her the bloodhound behind her back, a nickname she secretly relishes. She's built a life of quiet pride here, a stark contrast to the chaos of her childhood, when her father, Richard, ruled boardrooms with charm, iron will. Her husband, James, 38, is the other half of her carefully constructed world. A financial advisor with a dazzling smile, a wardrobe of tailored suits. He's the kind of man who commands a room without raising his voice. They met 8 years ago at a charity gala, him sipping bourbon, her clutching a glass of white wine, and married 2 years later in a small, tasteful ceremony upstate. Their sleek apartment in Chelsea, with its marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, feels like a monument to their shared success. Richard's death 3 years ago left Natalie a hefty inheritance, $5 million in cash assets, which she entrusted to James to manage. "It's what dads do," he joked, kissing her forehead. She'd believed him. But lately, the seams of that perfect life are fraying. James has been distant, his once warm brown eyes dodging hers over breakfast. He's taken to working late, claiming a big project at his firm, Pinnacle Wealth, demands his attention. Natalie doesn't push. Trust has always been their foundation. That is, until a rainy Thursday afternoon in March 2025 changes everything. She's reviewing a client's financials, a routine audit for a mid-sized tech startup, when an anomaly catches her eye, a series of payments labeled consulting fees, totaling $200,000, funneled to a company called Triton Enterprises. The name rings no bells, but the pattern does, small, staggered transactions, designed to slip under the radar. Her pulse quickens. She cross-references Triton, finds it's a shell entity, registered in Delaware, linked to Pinnacle Wealth. James firm. Her stomach churns as she stares at the screen, rain streaking the windows, like tears. This isn't a mistake, it's deliberate. Her forensic accounting instincts flare. Years of chasing discrepancies in corporate ledgers have honed her senses, but her heart resists. James wouldn't do this, not to her, not to them. She tells herself it's a coincidence, a glitch she'll laugh about later. But the numbers don't lie, and Natalie has built her career on their brutal honesty. She saves the files to a private drive, her hands trembling, and decides to dig deeper. The hunt has begun. For 3 weeks, Natalie becomes a ghost in her own life. By day, she's the poised professional, smiling at meetings, sipping coffee with colleagues. By night, she's a detective in her home office, the glow of her laptop casting shadows on the walls. She pulls bank statements, tax records, transaction logs, piecing together a puzzle she doesn't want to solve. Her expertise unravels James's deception with surgical precision, $3.2 million siphoned off over 2 years, not just from Pinnacle Wealth, but from their joint savings, her inheritance, the nest egg she'd planned for their future. Each discovery is a shard of glass in her chest, cutting through memories of lazy Sundays, whispered promises. She traces the money through a maze of offshore accounts, Panama, the Caymans, Switzerland, each transfer a thread in a web of betrayal. James has been meticulous, but not meticulous enough. She finds sloppy aliases, J. Carter, too close to his middle name, recycled routing numbers, a recurring IP address tied to their home Wi-Fi. He did this under her nose, in the same apartment where they'd danced to jazz records, planned a trip to Italy. The audacity fuels her anger, but the loss, $3.2 million, her father's legacy, breaks her. One sleepless night, James announces a business trip to Boston, kissing her cheek with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He's gone by dawn, suitcase in tow. Suspicion clos et her. She waits 10 minutes, then powers up his laptop. Password, June 14th, their anniversary. Aruki Mistake. She cracks his encrypted emails with a decryption tool from her forensic toolkit, and the truth spills out, a one-way ticket to the Caymans, booked for 48 hours from now, under an alias. Attached files detail a $3 million wire transfer to a numbered account, set to clear the moment he lands. He's not just stealing, he's fleeing. Natalie collapses into a chair, the room spinning. The man she loved, the man she trusted with her life, has gutted her. She replays their last conversation, his casual "love you, Nat," and bile rises in her throat. Rage simmers, then hardens into resolve. He thinks he's outsmarted her, that she's too soft, too naive to fight back. He doesn't know the woman he married. She wipes her tears, grabs her phone, and dials a number she never thought she'd need, the FBI. At 8 a.m., Natalie strides into the FBI's New York field office on Federal Plaza, a concrete fortress, dwarfed by the city's chaos. She's dressed in a crisp blazer, her USB drive of evidence tucked in her pocket, like a loaded gun. Her heart hammers, but her face is stone. She's not just a wife anymore. She's a witness, a weapon. The receptionist ushers her to Agent Daniel Carter, a 50-something investigator with graying hair, a voice like gravel. His office smells of stale coffee, ink, walls lined with commendations. He leans back in his chair, sizing her up. "Let me guess," he says, "husband trouble?" She slides the USB across his desk. "Husband trouble worth $3.2 million. Carter raises an eyebrow, plugs it in, spends 20 minutes scrolling through her files, spreadsheets, emails, bank records. His skepticism fades. "This isn't just a scorned wife," he mutters, echoing her own defiance. "You've got a case." Natalie exhales, relief mingling with dread. She's crossed a line she can't uncross. Carter assembles a small team, briefing them in clipped tones. They confirm James's flight, trace the Cayman account, but the investigation takes a sharp turn. The money doesn't stop with James. It flows into a syndicate, a network of shell companies, dirty players stretching back decades. Carter drops a bombshell. One of those companies, Triton Enterprises, brushed against Richard's firm, Horizon Capital, in the late 90s. Natalia's breath catches. Her father faced whispers of financial misconduct before his death, rumors she'd dismissed as jealous lies. Now, the FBI suspects he was either complicit or a target. "Did he know?" she asks, voice barely a whisper. Carter shrugs. Maybe he was in on it, maybe he was their loose end. The words hit like a slap. Richard's death, a sudden heart attack at 62, had always felt wrong, too convenient. Was James's betrayal a thread in a larger tapestry, one woven before she was born?
Carter offers no comfort, just a plan. Bei James, dismantle the syndicate, find the truth.
Natalie nods, steeling herself. This isn't just about her anymore. It's about her father's ghost, and the justice she'll drag into the light. The FBI huddles in their New York field office, a plan taking shape. Agent Carter's gravelly voice cuts through the hum of computers. "We let James think he's in the clear, let him dig his own grave." Natalie stands by the window, arms crossed, her eyes tracing the rain-slicked streets below. She agrees, her voice low, he's too arrogant to suspect a trap. The strategy is set. Monitor his moves, track the money, catch him red-handed as he flees with his mistress and her stolen millions. James, blissfully unaware, starts moving fast. Over 2 tense days, he transfers cash, $1.2 million to a Cayman Islands account, another $700,000 through a dummy corporation in Panama. He's careless, using the same burner phone, the same Wi-Fi Natalie once shared with him. The FBI's tech team lights up, screens flashing with every transaction. Carter mutters, "He's practically begging us to follow." Natalie, hunched over her laptop, watches the numbers dance, her forensic accounting brain kicking into overdrive. She knows his habits. He's rushing now, sloppy, desperate to vanish. One day before his escape, James ups the stakes. He pulls $600,000 in cash from a hidden account, one Natalie never even knew existed, then books a one-way ticket on a private jet from Teterboro to Grand Cayman. The FBI scrambles, pinning his location to their Chelsea apartment via cell tower pings. Natalie logs into the building's security cameras, her fingers shaky on the keyboard. The feed loads. There's James in a dark jacket, stuffing a duffel bag with stacks of bills, a fake passport. She zooms in, her breath catching. A woman hovers behind him, brunette, petite, her face half hidden. His mistress. Rage flares, but she chokes it down, whispering, "Got you." She calls Carter, voice clipped, "He's moving tonight. Cab's outside, he's heading to the airport." The FBI mobilizes, agents tailing the cab as it snakes through Manhattan's traffic, headlights glinting off wet pavement, horns blaring. Natalie watches the live feed, her heart thudding. James slumps in the backseat, duffel clutched tight, oblivious to the unmarked cars shadowing him. She imagines him smirking, dreaming of sandy beaches, cocktails with his lover, leaving her in ruins. But the trap's closing. Carter's voice buzzes in her ear. "We're on him, Natalie. He's not slipping through." She grips the edge of her desk, nails biting into wood, and mutters, "You're mine now, James." James isn't completely blind. Hours before his flight, paranoia kicks in. He notices a glitch on his burner phone, a faint echo on the line. He checks his accounts, spots an unfamiliar login. Someone's watching. His pulse races. He dials Natalie, voice ragged, panicked. "What did you do, Nat? The FBI's tracking me, aren't they?" She's in her apartment alone, the phone pressed to her ear. City lights flickering outside. She keeps her tone calm, lethal. "You really thought you could fool me forever, James? I've seen it all. The money, your mistress, your little getaway plan." He sputters, caught off guard. "You're lying. You can't prove a damn thing." But she hears the crack in his bravado. He's crumbling. She leans into it. "I've got your emails, your offshore accounts, every cent you stole from me, from my father. You're finished." Silence stretches, his breathing heavy. Then he shifts tactics, his voice softening. "Nat, please, I did this for us, for our family. The firm was bleeding. I had to save us. You don't want to destroy what we had, do you?" It's a familiar lie, the charming husband act she once fell for, hook, line, and sinker. She used to melt at those words, doubt herself, believe in their shared dream. Not now.
Shallows, sharp, cutting, OS?
"You threw us away the second you ran off with her. Took my money, my trust, everything.
Don't you dare twist this on me."
He scrambles, desperation seeping in. "I messed up, okay? I'll come back, I'll fix it. Just call them off, Nat, please." She fires back. "You don't get a second chance. Not after this." Meanwhile, the FBI closes the noose.
James reaches Teterboro, the jet's angines humming on the tarmac.
His mistress, nervous, clutching a designer bag, hovers beside him, whispering urgently. He's still on the phone begging, "Half the money, Nat. I'll wire it back, just give me a way out."
Natalie smirks, cold. "You're out of moves, James.
"I played you this time." Agents creep closer, disguised as ground crew, radio silent, surrounding the plane. Then it happens. SUVs roar onto the runway, lights flashing, tires screeching. James drops the phone, mid-plea. "Nat, don't." Agents swarm, pinning him to the ground, his mistress shrieking as cuffs snap on. Natalie watches via Carter's live feed, her pulse pounding. James's face twists in shock, realization dawning. She betrayed him, the quiet wife he underestimated, the accountant who turned his game against him. Carter's voice cuts through. "He's down, Natalie, nice work." She stares at the screen, James handcuffed, dragged away, and feels no joy, just a hollow victory. He thought he'd won. She proved him wrong. With James locked up, the FBI digs into the bigger picture. A sprawling corruption network unravels before them. Carter summons Natalie to the field office, his tone clipped. "This goes beyond your husband, way beyond." They sift through Triton Enterprises records, the shell company tied to James's theft, and to Richard's Horizon Capital decades ago. A file surfaces, Richard's name on a 1997 contract, authorizing $1.8 million to Triton. Natalie's stomach drops. Did her father build the life she loved on dirty money? She dives into the evidence, her forensic skills razor-sharp. Dates align, then diverge. Payments from Richard stop in 1998, a year before his death, replaced by a cryptic memo, "End this now." Carter leans over. He might have been in too deep, or he tried to get out. Natalie unearths a journal from Richard's office, faded ink, frantic scroll. "Triton's a lie. They'll bury me for this." Her heart sinks. He wasn't a crook, he was trapped. Emotions swirl. Relief he might be innocent, fury at his killers. She'd worshipped Richard, the man who'd shaped her integrity. Now, that legacy teeters. Was he framed by the syndicate, silenced with a staged heart attack? Carter nods. If he was clean, someone big pulled the strings. The questions claw at her. If he was innocent, who was the mastermind? Can she clear his name, scrub the corruption stain from his memory? She grips the journal, resolve igniting. This fight's not just hers anymore, it's his. The FBI's investigation barrels forward, a relentless machine peeling back decades of lies. Carter calls Natalie into the field office one crisp March morning. His desk is buried under files, his eyes bloodshot. "We've got something big, Natalie, really big." They've traced Triton Enterprises' roots, unearthing a conspiracy that stretches back to the late 90s. A network of crooked CEOs, offshore accounts, and Richard's name smeared across it all. But the deeper they dig, the clearer it becomes. Richard wasn't a player, he was a pawn. Carter slides a folder across the table, yellowed documents, grainy scans. One catches her eye, a 1997 audit report, doctored to tie Richard to Triton's payouts, approved by a signature that looks like his, but it's off, the loop's too sharp, the slant too forced. They forged it, Carter says, tapping the page, used his name to launder millions, made him the fall guy. Natalie's hands tremble as she flips through more internal memos from Horizon Capital, Richard's frantic notes, "Triton's blackmailing me. Refuse, and they'll ruin us." Her father didn't just stumble into this. He was hunted, trapped by the same syndicate James later joined. Her mind races. The heart attack at 62, the sudden collapse at his desk, the coroner's rushed report. She'd always questioned it, felt the ache of something unresolved. Now it clicks. "They killed him," she whispers, voice breaking. Carter nods, grim, looks that way, staged it to look natural, silenced him before he could talk. The revelation guts her. Richard wasn't corrupt, he was a whistleblower, betrayed by the very men he'd trusted. And James? He'd married her to finish the job, to bleed her father's legacy dry with his mistress waiting in the wings. Natalie's grief morphs into fury. She won't let them win. She storms to a law firm that afternoon, slamming the evidence on their desk. "I want a lawsuit, public, loud, against Triton and anyone who touched this." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Elena, flips through the files, nods. "We can clear his name. Civil suit, defamation, wrongful death. It's a long shot, but you've got the goods." Natalie signs the papers, her signature bold. Richard deserved justice, not a grave stained with lies. She leaves the office, rain pelting her face, a fire lit inside her. This isn't just about James anymore, it's about righting a decades-old wrong. Months later, the courtroom hums with tension. James stands trial, shackled, his charm replaced by a hollow stare. The prosecution lays it out. $3.2 million embezzled, a mistress on his arm, a jet fueled for escape. Natalie sits in the gallery, her eyes locked on him as the evidence piles up. Her USB drive, her camera feeds, her voice in every damning recording. The jury doesn't blink, guilty on all counts. The judge slams the gavel, 15 years, no parole. His mistress, indicted as an accessory, gets 5. Triton's top brass, 3 CEOs with blood on their hands, face 20 each, their empire dismantled. Carter meets her outside, a rare smile cracking his face. "You nailed him, Natalie, clean sweep." She nods, but her focus shifts. Richard's vindication. The lawsuit hits its stride. Elena's team unearths more. A whistleblower's affidavit, buried in 1999, confirming Richard's innocence. The court rules. Triton framed him, his death suspicious, his name cleared. Natalie clutches the verdict in her hands, tears streaking her cheeks. Not triumph, but relief. Her father wasn't the villain she'd feared. He was a fighter, like her. She visits his grave that evening, the air cool, quiet. "You didn't deserve this, Dad, but it's over now." The weight lifts, a burden she'd carried too long. Justice isn't perfect, but it's enough, for now. After the dust settles, Natalie sits in her emptied apartment. The sleek Chelsea space feels hollow without James's lies filling it. She's quit Harrow and Associates, the firm too tainted by Triton's shadow. But in the silence, a truth crystallizes. Family isn't always picture-perfect, blood or bond, but the truth?
That's worth evaluating.
She mutters to herself, it always needs to come out, no matter how ugly. Her forensic accounting skills, once a quiet pride, now burn with purpose. She won't let others suffer like she did, like Richard did. She starts a consultancy, small, scrappy, helping victims of financial fraud fight back. Her first client, a single mom scammed by a shady landlord, wins back her savings. Natalie's cut is seeing the woman's relieved smile. Word spreads, Reddit threads buzz with Ita update vibes, calling her a real-life hero. She shrugs it off, but it fuels her. She keeps Richard's journal on her desk, a reminder. He fought corruption, lost his life, she'll fight, reclaim hers. The work's hard, the hours long, but it's hers. A new legacy built on truth, not lies.